Yeah. Now I'm recording. Okay. So yeah, I guess you've heard a few of these, so you know how we run it. I was just thinking, should I like just double summary them? Or how what do you think smartest there?
I mean, they could both be done in like a one-line summary.
Oh, I wrote more than one line. You have to deal with that.
Of course you did, but you shouldn't have.
I was gonna say, I think
But we'll get
I
it.
should start making you and Mark send me your summaries in advance.
Where you hatchet edit them, yes. Okay. Hey, when I did the Space 1999 yesterday, I gave it to Captain Mike and he was like, "Oh, should I put it into like acts?" So I was like, "No, no, no, you just read it." So yeah, it wasn't that long anyway. That one was cool. It had a glowing orb, like Death Star size thing that had an eye in it that was sitting inside a brain. So that was pretty cool. If you want trippy stuff. um, and then I guess you have. Well, you can start things however you want. I guess
Oh yeah, have we got a system for these ones yet?
we could all just start screaming like then you go and then we just do it into it. Yeah.
No, let's not do that. That sounds horrendous to listen to.
let's do the opposite of silent. Actually,
Um,
should we just do the whole thing while playing piano music in the background? That
I think we'll say Mark's here and he's just giving us the silent treatment.
uh,
Um,
excellent.
In at number one on the bottom films of all time list, it's the studio system. Fuck them.
okay, there we go. So
That's how we're starting all of these ones.
anyway, we're staying a little bit out of studio lines today. Public domain with strikes and stuff going on, but
When
this
it was
was
made, this would have been a studio film, though, right?
kind of this is weird. Today we are talking Sherlock Jr. and Steamboat Bill Jr., both Buster Keaton Productions, which is one of the key terms here. And well, I don't know. I guess we should do a quick introduction before I get into it. Yeah.
Sure.
It's a question with a big answer is the issue. So hi, it's Matt.
It's Luke.
And
Mark is going to be doing the silent treatment today for a silent movie, a pair of silent movies. But no, actually, he's ailing a bit, so hopefully he'll be back soon. So filling in the Mark chair today is Spenser. Hi, Spenser.
hello, playing the role of Mark is Spenser.
That's right. So yeah. Well, I just see we
And
just
playing
did
the
the
role
other.
of Matt is Luke, and playing the role of Luke is Matt.
Okay. I don't think I should do a fake accent. I'd have to change
No,
my
but I think
accent.
we should call each other by each other's names for this whole podcast. I don't
What
think
full
that'll get
names?
confusing for
Everything.
anyone.
You want me to just say Luke Summerhaze every time?
No, I just think you're what you can say. I'm not going to call you Luke Summers. I'm just going to call you Luke. You can call me
Okay.
Matthew Comagist if you want.
I'm just going to refer to myself in the third person.
That's cool. Like Bob Dole used to. That was awesome.
Right.
Okay.
Spencer Kormos will talk about himself in the third person.
Yeah, that makes a great podcast. So this was I told you I had two birthday picks. This was one of them. So I'm just using it up now, right? As we're this the other one I'll keep a mystery, but I think you'll be entertained by it. I don't know. We'll see. So to get to the question, is this Hollywood? Yes and no. Buster Keaton started out in the New York scene. You know, this is pre-unions and everything, and started making films with Roscoe Arbuckle, who's I guess better known as Fatty Arbuckle, but apparently if you were friends with him, you didn't call him Fatty because it's kind of rude.
That kind of makes sense.
So they made films together. You know, moved out to Hollywood to start making films where Buster Keaton ended up with Buster Keaton Productions, which sounds great. It sounds like he has his hand on the tiller, right? But Buster Keaton Productions employed him. A guy named Joe Shank was a producer. He set up the company. He owned the company. He was actually the boss, right? And Buster was a hired hand on a company with his name on it, but was given pretty much free reign. Shank eventually sold his production company to MGM. So Keaton also goes to MGM, makes two or three movies. Well, two silents, about three talkies, and then his career basically ends. So he got kind of chewed up and spit out by the studio system. So I don't know. I even though it is Hollywood product, it's kind of like a tell story. I guess. And if you read, you could go Keaton's life in many ways. I was having a Keaton obsession last spring, which is kind of where part of this came from, right?
Yeah.
And I had two books. One was a biography. One was ghost written autobiography. I think it credited the ghostwriter, but the biography talks about how his life was just dark and depressing, how the funny man on screen isn't actually that funny. Whereas the autobiography is like, yeah, I've had I had a few bad years in the 30s for sure, but I've had a pretty awesome life. So it's like, well, which one do you trust,
Both. If he doesn't remember the bad stuff, maybe it's good. I don't know.
Well, he remembers it. He was just saying that's in the past and now I'm here, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Still
the 30s
alive and still recognizable.
well, at that point in time. Yeah, now he's not. He'd be very old if he was still alive. I guess I'll ask you guys, what do you know about Keaton? Because I've been an off and on obsessor on these films since I was like 18 or so. Luke, what about you?
I'm aware of Keaton, obviously, but the most Keaton I've watched was that Twilight Zone we watched a couple weeks ago, and then this.
Oh, that had to like blow your mind a little bit because he's very old and tired in that Twilight. It's nice to see him and hear him, but he's very old and tired in that Twilight Zone.
Yeah, and here he's so young, like everything's junior.
Yeah. I chose the juniors on purpose. I also consider them to be pretty much the best ones. The general's very good, but it's a little more dramatic in a weird way. And then you have to start talking about like the Confederacy and Civil War and blah blah. And I didn't want to open that can of worms. And the cameraman is very good, but I just didn't want to bring that one up. So that was the first MGM one. That was that little sweet spot where he was in the studio and could still like make a film properly. So Spenser, how about you? I think I was your suggestion when we first started talking about this, which is still on my mind, is something called the Gorilla, which seems to be like a low rent like Marx Brothers or something, or Three Stooges. I'm not quite sure which. And I know Luke's perking up to the Gorilla. I should hope he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm always down for an ape movie.
When you brought up the idea of like doing public domain movies, I started looking through the list of like movies that are in public domain, and that was one of them. I was checking. This is bizarrely interesting and probably up Matt's alley. I think this might be something fun to do.
Yeah, that was the one that appealed to me the most. But
but in terms of Buster Keaton, I mean, I knew of him. I think I'm in the same boat as Luke. It's like I knew of him. I saw that Twilight Zone episode when we talked about it. I have as much as I should have known a lot of the Twilight Zone episodes. I haven't watched a lot of them, and so as you've been going through this, is giving me an excuse and motivation to do it myself and also follow along and watch them. So that one, I was like, oh my god, this guy's hilarious. The whole feet up in the air act of putting on the pants in that scene, that movie, that was like that seemed to me classic, slapstick comedy, silent movie type of comedy. And
then Keaton is the man that basically invented the slapstick and the pie throwing gag. So he's on the ground floor of this.
Yeah, and funny you should say ground floor. There's a lot of building gags coming up. We're going to be talking about the Steamboat Bill Jr. But aside from that, I really never saw any of his stuff. I've seen, Charlie Chaplin and all the knockoffs of what is his character?
The Tramp.
Yeah. So, that stuff I've seen, but this is the first that I really kind of like took in his work. First, I've seen a silent movie in like I think 2 years or something like that. I showed my kids City Lights, but that was about it.
Yeah, the Keatons were just off of our good movies list, where we do have a few Chaplins. And one of the things of being a Keaton defender is you're like, oh man, but he was so great, and never, Chaplin gets all the notice, and that's what people see. And people are like, oh, so you don't like Charlie Chaplin? It's like, no, that's good too. I like both, but it did annoy me that these were like, I think the general, or maybe it was one of the juniors, was like 110 on the list of 100. So it's one of those things where you just missed it, and so yeah, I just want to scoop that up here. I mean, Shin Godzilla didn't make the list, right, Luke? So we made up for that.
If something motivates, I don't know, something brings his career back around, maybe more people would get get into him and it would be more popular. I'm actually surprised that he's just not nearly as popular even among cinephiles as Charlie Chaplin is. You know, it's like the
Well,
notable building falling down scene, of course, right? Everybody knows that, but they don't actually know who that is when you talk about it, which is really sad in a lot of ways.
I wonder if so. Would you say that Chaplin was more in the studio system, Matt?
Um, maybe less. Because
Okay,
he
interesting.
was a better businessman. He was able to keep his financial assets under his thumb, basically. I mean, he got kicked out by Hollywood too. He got sent out of the country, blacklisted eventually, right? So
Yeah.
in the 50s. So
Wasn't he
Chaplin,
one of the founders of United Artists?
yes, he was. So
Yeah.
he started the studio system, but then made himself kind of his own island and ended up out of the country too. So
But
Mm.
United Artists was like literally like pushback against the studio system. It was United Artists. It was a group of artists coming together, a group of movie stars coming together to actually make their own studio.
true, true, but by the end of the 30s, I feel like the good intentions get ground into just being another part of the studio system. So, especially by the 60s, so when you have that awesome, creepy United Artists logo. I mean, I would say by that point they're probably, I feel like they're kind of studio. But yeah,
Yeah.
Chaplin was not really into. He was a much smarter businessman than
Oh
Keaton,
yeah,
which might be why you're seeing him on posters and stuff more these
yeah.
days.
That's what I was going to say. It's just because if he handled that side of it better, then his legacy would have been taken care of in a way that Keaton's wasn't,
Yeah, Keaton was a
either by the
disaster as a
studio or just
businessman.
by his estate or whatever.
Yeah. As someone who doesn't understand money, I find that charming. So,
For me, I'd heard a lot about Keaton growing up, specifically in the context of he's the precursor to Jackie Chan.
yeah, for
And
sure.
I've read like multiple Jackie Chan biographies and Jackie Chan autobiographies. So that's the context in which I always hear Keaton. It's like Chan was doing this stunt, and Keaton had done this. Like I see it as more of a stunt guy than a comedy guy. And I do love silent comedy and slapstick, but mostly in the form of cartoons.
I can't remember the fella's name, but the John Wick movies have a lot of subtle Keaton references. And, sometimes you'll see like a poster of him on the wall because the director is, the stunts in John Wick are very much
Well,
inspired by
the
the sort of
director
thing.
started out as a stunt guy.
Right, right. So,
Like the John Wick films are just an excuse to do stunts. So, and
as
the John
some
Wick
of
guy
these
is
are.
leading the charge to introduce a stunt Oscar,
Okay. They didn't
which
have that
it's a
before.
shame.
Okay.
It's a shame we never had that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when you hear like 1984 was the first time they had like a makeup Oscar. You're like, what? Really? Or it might have been 85. I think Temple of Doom was one of the ones up for that the first
Yeah.
year. So,
I hope they
um,
bring it in time for Tom Cruise and Jackie Chan to win one before they retire.
and we're all deep enough in the track. Spencer's got that Deep Space Nine's background there.
Lower
Brent
decks.
Spiner's, yeah. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Brent, oh yeah, I thought that was the D, and that's the Cerritos. Okay. Well, I'm
Meta
looking at
meta.
it's a tiny screen here. But Brent Spiner's Lieutenant Commander Data is pretty Keaton inspired, just especially in the sort of stone face aspect of it all. I guess we'll get a little more movie centric here, and I will do a couple rundowns of. I'll just do both Sherlock Jr. and Steamboat Bill Jr. and hopefully Luke. Well, I won't see Luke glowering at me because the text is covering up his face. Uh, Sherlock Jr., our protagonist, wants to do two things at once: hold a job as a film projectionist and learn to be a detective. While he holds his moral ground while sweeping up the trash, he gets a little cheap buying chocolates for his lady love. The local sheik makes that bite him in the bonkers and frames him for stealing his girlfriend's father's watch. Our protagonist goes back to his job and astral projects himself right into the movie that he is screening. After a hiccup or two, he takes on the role of Sherlock Jr., bent on solving the case. He works his way through pool-based assassination attempts and driverless motorcycle rides to get his man. Back in the real world, his lady rather easily works out the chic scam, so film, filth, or the real world, everything comes up Millhouse in the end. And as for Steamboat Bill Jr., excuse me, Steamboat Bill's a gruff rootin' tootin' steamboat Captain having to face big Steamboat right in the face, but he'll soon have the assistance of his long lost son. It turns out his son is a dandy, though, who is more concerned with wooing the daughter of his Steamboat rival. Though Dad tries to thwart this coupling, he ends up in jail once his Steamboat is condemned. Our fortunate son tries to break him out, but an incoming hurricane throws everything into chaos. Sonny has a few houses dropped on him, but wins back both his lady, and daddy. The rival Steamboat King ends up on the river bottom, and the unfortunately named Stonewall Jackson remains the king of this bit of the Mississippi. Okay, I'm finished. I try to make them shortish.
Matt,
Yeah,
I've heard that name, but I don't know what it means. What's Stonewall Jackson?
he's a Confederate general that
I
was
assumed it was something Confederate.
yeah, and yeah, because he was known for being unstoppable, and then he took a couple rounds in the chest, like in the last day of the war.
Huh?
But yeah, so again, that's one of the reasons I was like, maybe it's better not to do the general, because then we'd have to spend like 30 minutes talking about that stuff. Where I think we're basically finished now with Stonewall Jackson, I guess. So,
is he one of the ones on your big laser mountain?
Maybe. I don't remember. He might be. He might be one of the guys on there. I don't know if that makes me a bad student of history because I'm from the city, but I don't remember who's on there. So guys on horses, yeah, Stone
That's
Mountain,
good. Fuck
Georgia.
it. I need to remember the white guys.
Stonewall's a name you remember though. Yeah.
That's the name of my first daughter.
Stonewall Jaw. Yeah, there we go. She doesn't get bullied at school for that.
That's why we nicknamed her her name. I'm not going to bring it up on there.
we already mentioned the Keaton persona, or the Chaplin persona, a little bit. Another thing with the Keaton one, it's a little harder to put your finger on. So you guys, having watched your first two full Keatons, which are still relatively short, what would you say is his persona?
I was surprised how like sort of foppish and camp he is. Well, not necessarily what I was expecting. Persona is like it's like he wants to just be like quiet and invisible in the corner and date a nice girl and settle down, and then mad stuff happens to him.
Yeah, I was going to say
the vibe I got.
Similar. Yeah.
It didn't feel like he was like a wacky scamp who was causing all of this. It was like he was really good at making it seem like it was just happening and like he couldn't help it.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the stone face, like that part of the persona, which started in vaudeville where he did an act with his dad, who you do see in both of them, I think. Yeah, he's the girlfriend's father, and Sherlock Jr. is Daddy Keaton, and they do an act where basically his father would like throw him around the stage and like act like he's punishing him, and be very very un-PC humor for today, right? Like they even had child services called on them in like 1910 about this. So, but
that takes some doing.
But he was like, I know how to fall, and we like doing it or whatever.
Yeah.
But one of the things he learned early on is he got much bigger laughs if he never smiled. Like if you're being a little stinker and then you smile that because you're being a little stinker, it's not as funny as if you look completely oblivious to everything, apparently, or at least in their act.
And funny enough, though, his eyes, you watch his eyes. I mean, he's got massive eyes, like and I know like the eyeliner really underscores and kind of like accentuates it, but he still has big eyes, and you watch it, there's a lot coming out of that. So it's funny that when I was I actually didn't know that his nickname was Stoneface until I was watching there's a podcast or a video series on YouTube called Every Frame of Painting. They actually cover him, and I was watching that a little bit. And they were talking about his persona to some degree and just how Keaton movies impacted other movies. But I was watching it, I was like, you can see a lot of his stuff come through, like a lot of his emotions come through, and it's pretty impressive for everything else below his eyes, just like not moving at all.
And that's why I was bringing up Data before. As a big Trek fan, I think that was kind of my key into Keaton, I like Data a lot, and oh, this is kind of the same vibe. And I didn't even like make the connection, but I think I kind of felt the connection, so it was like appealing to me because of that.
Yeah. Overall, I agree with Luke. It's weird. I was actually thinking about that. You know, he's kind of just the house falling on him. In I know we're jumping to Steamboat Bill, but that's kind of like the literal embodiment of that whole persona, right? It's like
Mm.
everything's happening around him, but he's not really causing. He does cause some of it, like he kind of gets people into trouble or does silly things or whatever it is, but for the most part, you know, the storm's blowing around him and blowing him around, and it's like,
Mm.
okay, well, what do we see in terms of the impact of him getting blown around and all those other things that are happening? But you know, like Luke said with Chaplin interacts with a lot of people that causes problems. He gets chased around by cops, whatever it is, and it's just it's a different thing. It's really a different style of comedy and slapstick.
But I think that's also where the Jackie Chan connection comes from. Because Jackie Chan, like, the fun of a Jackie Chan scene is he never seems like he's the one in control. He's like just barely getting through by the skin of his teeth.
Hmm.
And like that's how Keaton's doing it here.
And they're also both, behind the scenes. Like, Chan directs sometimes, doesn't
Meticulously
he?
in control.
Yeah,
I don't know if he
exactly.
directs,
Like
but the stunts, like,
he's in
yeah.
control. Yeah, and I do know one of the first things and this is the same thing with Keaton. When Jackie Chan first came to the States, they're like, we want you to do these stunts in Hollywood films. It's like, well, I'm going to need like 2 weeks for this one shot. And they're like, oh God, they don't want to do
Yeah.
that. It was the same with Keaton. The movies were kind of expensive because you'd have to do this an awful lot before, you got to
Mm-hmm.
set up that house. Or you're going to crush a dude.
But I think he also had said that he didn't want to do any of these stunts if it couldn't be done in one shot. Like he wanted everything happening in one shot so that people would believe it. Like he didn't think people would believe things were falling on him if it was like, oh, you see the house falling and then they cut to another angle and then he's standing in the middle of the house. Well, I mean, anybody can do that, right? Or
Yeah.
there's the other one in Sherlock Jr. where he's on the roof and he grabs the
Oh,
toll,
the tote thing, yeah.
yeah,
That was
the
great.
gate, and he's hanging all the way down. I'm thinking about that, going, oh my God, you literally see him climb all the way up. He's on the roof after following the guy and getting locked out, and you see him running around, and then I was like, oh my God, that's really scary.
Yeah, the one that stuck out for me was on the train where the different carriages are going past and he's staying in place. And yeah, again, all in one shot.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, and Jackie Chan takes that to the next level by shooting it three different angles and showing all three.
Yeah, because he can, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just like it's
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of
that's the difference in
You got more
cameras, right?
cameras. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, again, I guess I will, if people want to continue, I would refer them to the General, where he, rides a moving train strut for a while, which a slip and you have now ground yourself in a hamburger, and they drive a train off a bridge. So in the mid 20s, so that's pretty impressive. Like in one shot, not models. I guess that's part
Nice.
of the thing here. Like you, like to the modern eye, it's like, yeah, you can do that, but you're right. Wait a minute, there's no green screen, there's no compositing
Yeah.
or anything. The effect in Sherlock Jr. where he like astral projects was like a major technical accomplishment for the time.
Mm.
I can't remember exactly how they did that, but if you read about how he did it, it's like just it's one of those insane things. Like you
Like
really
probably
could
hand by hand putting 2 frames of video together or whatever.
film, but yeah,
You know
that
what I
sort of
mean?
thing. Yeah. Did you guys well, do you know the stunt in Sherlock, excuse me, Steamboat Bill Jr. that broke his neck? No, Sherlock. Now my brain's well. He broke his neck in
No,
one of these.
anyway,
So
no. You
okay,
don't even know what film it is, so of course we don't.
well, it's the well, I watched them in quick succession tonight. It's the water tower suddenly dropping water on him.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
really.
water weighs more than you think.
Yeah, exactly. Which and they were not expecting that much water to come out either. And he walks away from it. And you see him in the shot walk away, but it's like 3 years later he's in the doctor, and the guy's like, "Dude, you've broken your neck," and it's like reset itself. And he had like migraines and a whole lot of health problems from it. So, yeah, that stunt actually did him some great damage, and he was just like, "Ooh, that hurt," you know. But it turned out that he properly broke it.
Gnarly.
Huh.
So
can I jump back a second? I don't know if I ever noticed this in other silent films, but the inline credits to the beginning of the movie, and I noticed this in both of the movies, really confused me initially. Because they would show the card and they would say who it is, and they would have a dash and it would be the actual actor. And I didn't realize that was the actor. I thought that was the name of the character. And then one of the cards had the character and the actor, but it was in different positions. I'm like, I'm completely lost. I actually had to stop and look at IMDb to see who was who.
I guess I just didn't pay attention to that.
Yeah, I think I just go straight to go straight to IMDb for most of that sort of thing, or wiki, you know. So, but yeah, now that you're mentioning it, and characters don't necessarily have like names. Like,
right.
It's weird. Like in the movie, he's Sherlock Jr., but in the quote unquote real world, he's just the protagonist. I should have called him the projectionist. I missed that. Oops.
Yeah, he's the projectionist, and then in Steamboat Bill, the first mate is just called the first mate. But if you look on IMDb, he actually has a character name. So it's weird how they set that up. I mean, everything's kind of loose, right? At that point, it's how they want to present the movie. The other thing I noticed with the beginning of Sherlock Jr., the fonts or the typeface was really weird.
You got to stand out.
Well, did you guys notice that it was like CT and ST had like a circle connecting it? And I'm staring at this going, what on earth is this? I could not make it out. And then I was just like, oh, okay, let me just ignore it, and just kept going. I don't know. I focus on things like that sometimes.
I guess it's because now, you know, these days, you're going to be on Word or something, and you're going to just look through that list of fonts. And you know, in 1924, you've got to do it by hand.
Well, I remember reading when they were making the Star Wars prequels, it was a big issue. Like, no one could remember what font they'd used for the originals. And then it was also tilted at an angle, so it wasn't easy to just put it into a computer and find out. So they were having to like tilt it back to being upright, then figure out what font it is, and then recreate it for the prequels. But I was good. I had a question actually, Matt. So obviously, Mickey Mouse, we have Steamboat Willie, and here's Steamboat Bill. I assume they're both references to something, but what?
I think Steamboat Willie is basically kind of half in like referencing this movie because
Keaton, but then this one's called Steamboat Bill Jr., so that implies that there's like a Sherlock Jr., right? And there's Sherlock before that.
Yeah.
What was the Steamboat Bill before Steamboat Bill Jr., or there wasn't?
Oh, there's Keaton's Jr. and the River Guy's Bill Sr., right?
Okay.
I mean, that's what I assumed at least. They're both Bill.
So I didn't know if there was some more serious thing called Steamboat Bill that they're both referring to.
No,
he's referring to a Confederate general. No,
well, there's an awful lot of that.
Steamboat Bill is a song from 1910.
Okay, so this is a sequel to the song.
Yeah, well, that's what the name is referencing. I knew the name had to be referencing something because it's so specific.
Right.
But then, yeah, you're probably right that Steamboat Willie was just going off of this.
Yeah, I mean, again, one of the reasons we know Chaplin better is while both of them were making successful movies, Chaplin was a little bit more successful. But I guess, you know, Walt Disney could have been referencing this or both, or, you know, yeah.
Steamboat Bill notably inspired two major works of American film: the 1928 Buster Keaton film Steamboat Bill Jr. and Steamboat Willie, the first Mickey Mouse cartoon.
Okay, that we gotta trust Wiki then, yeah.
Both 1928.
Yeah, so it's like
so even if it was, like if it was like just literally ripping off Keaton, they busted it out quick.
Busted it out quick, yeah. Yeah, and animation takes time, especially.
Animation's not that quick.
Yeah, maybe it's just like how like the '90s are back in fashion. It's always like 2 or 3 decades back in fashion again. So
Hmm.
could be that sort of thing. I don't know. Well, since we are in such stunt laden films, do you guys have a favorite? Maybe you mentioned it already.
Hmm.
I like the train. I liked most of the gags and the stunts in Sherlock Jr. better than Steamboat Bill. Steamboat Bill felt like a lot of like over the top house destruction for the sake of house destruction. Like, oh my god, a house fell on him. Although I think they probably filmed that in reverse. I don't know, they picked up the house and then played it backwards. That felt more kind of on the nose and the hurricane scene there. The tilted house that kind of like looked like it dug itself into the ground.
Oh, right, yeah, because yeah, the famous one is going forward.
Right. Yeah. When the house falls down and it falls, falls down with him through the window. Like that's the front of the house. But there's one where the actual house falls on him. He's in the middle of a field.
Right.
And the way that it's shot, it's like very, very jerky. Like they kind of settled it down on him.
Hmm.
And then played it backwards and
Yeah, that
reversed.
was one of the only shots that looked like an effect in the whole
Right.
thing.
Exactly. But then the train one was fun. I liked the motorcycle one too. That one was kind of fun in
Oh
Sherlock
yeah, the
Jr.
motorcycle bit was great.
Yeah, he's like going for a long time, and he's constantly telling his man Gillette back there, watch where you're going, watch where you're going, or something like that. And he doesn't realize that he's literally just riding the front of the motorcycle. And I wonder if they started it and just let him go.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. It's
Yeah, a
pretty.
few years later, I'd assume it was radio controlled, but this time, I'm guessing not.
Yeah, they were doing something mad there. I mean, did either of you guys watch Babylon?
No,
No, it's on my list. I never got a chance to yet.
it's not on my
Yeah.
list. I don't give a shit.
Well, you got to deal with a whole lot of elephant poop like in the first 5 minutes. So be warned about that. But after the wild party, it's the next day everyone's on set where you see the
I'm more
silent
likely to
sets.
rewatch Babylon 5 before I watch Babylon.
But anyway, the point is when they show the set, it's like they're out like L.A. County shrub, just a giant field, and here's like set up for a little chamber drama with a house set, and directly next to that is like Centurions having like a all out battle. Meanwhile, 3 stunt people here or there are dead, you know. So just all these movies being made in the same place because the noise doesn't matter, does it? So
Hmm.
and people are dying on set because they're riding on the front of moving motorcycles and stuff. Oops, that guy actually got stabbed by like a Centurion staff.
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of the energy of something like that motorcycle ride.
The thing I took away from Steamboat, not Steamboat, sorry, Sherlock Jr. was it's amazing how early we are in cinema and yet it's already being so meta.
That's one of the big conversations about that particular one, which um let's get to that. I did want to get the stunt right. I'll just shoot out the one that I liked this time was the coming off of the building and onto the car
That
thing.
probably is mine as well.
Okay.
Just because I'm watching it and I'm like, how's he going to get down? And then he does it. And I'm just like, great.
That's probably the
Yeah.
most Chan-like stunt.
Yeah. It's very Chan.
The one that I think is technically the most interesting, aside from him walking into the movie, is he turns the corner and he's in the back. He's in the kind of like the back alley and he's got nowhere to go and the guys are chasing him after he saves his girlfriend or whatever.
When he goes through the case.
Yeah, he jumps through Gillette's case and he's gone. And like you can't. I don't know if that's just great editing. It has to be. I don't know how else they would have done that, but it is seamless. Like I watched it a few times.
That was making use of one of his old vaudeville bits. They had perfected that like around 1905.
I feel like I've seen that on stage.
Huh.
Yeah. So they were just like, hey, we could put this little bit like we don't even have to set this up. It's like the pants in the Twilight Zone episode. It was just like a really old bit that he used to do, and it's like, well, here's a good place to put it. It doesn't, he can do that in his sleep.
Yeah.
Where some of the others, you got to definitely be awake for that stunt. Um, let us talk about the meta, because I think that is the key. That's why I like Sherlock Jr. so much, because we're already looking at, like, what's the nature of the movies, what's the division between the audience, all that sort of thing. We talked about the astral projection shot being pretty cool. How do you feel about him stepping into the movie?
That look, but what do you mean, like as a shot?
Yeah, as a shot.
Yeah, it looked really good. I assumed that they just set up a fake cinema and the screen was actually a stage.
They
Yeah,
did.
that's
They
what I
took
did too.
the reason I would say it looks good, is it was through lighting, where they
Right, so to
hyper
make it
they hyper lit that set, and then the theater itself was more naturally lit, so they were, the
yeah,
harsh
so it looked
lighting
like a
made it work.
screen. That
Yeah,
works.
exactly. So
And they're kind of distracting you because he's walking down from the back of the theater and he sits, and then he walks a little bit further and he sits, and you're constantly like, you're trying to look at the screen, and at least for me, every single time you're looking at the screen, quote unquote, the movie screen, he gets up and he moves and you follow him, so it's like you're not focusing too much on what's going on up on the screen. And then they also transition very quickly from, like, half cut kind of shots to full body shots, like the full room.
Yeah.
So they played a little bit with perspective and then kind of trickery of like leading your eye. And then suddenly he's like standing up on stage and you're like, okay, are people just gonna like start throwing stuff at him? Because people in those times were just given rotten cabbage and tomatoes at the door, apparently. So I thought they were gonna start throwing rotten vegetables at him, but he walks in. I was like, wow, that's neat. I like that a lot.
and then, of
What
course,
I really loved was the it would cut between different scenes and he's like in position where he tries to jump in the water and then the water's not there, and all of that stuff was great.
That was weird. I didn't understand that at all.
I think the idea is he's got to adapt to the logic of a movie, because movies have cuts, and he's like not navigating those cuts at first. That said, what it's doing is what I wrote in my notes is more like channel flipping, which is weird for 1924 since they didn't have
Yeah.
TV yet. But it felt like something like in what is the John Ritter movie where he's stuck in the TV or something? Yeah, something like that. From the late 80s, early 90s. So I was like, wow, that's a weird thing to have for 1924. But you still got the idea of editing and cutting by
Yeah,
1924.
yeah.
So you can do that. But yeah, those are impressive stunts that you're barely tracking as stunts because you're too impressed by the effect, especially being done at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah, really well done.
the way they did the effect was amazing. I just completely did not understand it. It felt like a really weird and bizarre dream sequence within the
Which
dream.
it was.
Well, yeah, but it's like a second dream sequence within the dream sequence. It's like, you're sitting there dreaming about, going somewhere and skiing the slopes, and then suddenly you hit the bottom of the slope and you're, having tea with elephants or something. I don't know. It's like
That's
very,
what my
very
dreams are
strange.
like. And I've had weird dreams where I didn't see the first layer as a dream, but then in that dream I went to sleep again, and then I was like recognize that as a dream. So like I'm personally incepting myself or something. I will say I mentioned on that Twilight Zone podcast a few months ago that I just as a test tried to see if during a snack time if Buster Keaton could get a 5-year-old's attention, and this sequence did, because at first they were like, what is this, because they're 5 and I'm showing them this weird black and white thing, but 30 seconds in they were like like into it, so like more than expected, so there's something to it.
No, we've been watching the Wile E. Coyotes in my snack times.
Oh, okay, well
They haven't aged
also
today.
no, also very Buster Keaton style humor there,
Yeah.
Weird devices, Rube Goldberg machines in effect. Of course, it's an animated coyote in that case, but not a person. But yeah, you can do more with that in some ways. So
Oh, thinking about it, growing up, my Buster Keaton was Mr. Bean.
I
yeah.
love
But
Mr.
he's
Bean.
not stone faced. He's always making an expression.
He's almost the exact opposite. It's like
Yeah. And it's all his fault.
yeah, exactly. It's funny. My 12-year-old, I actually just showed her Mr. Bean, the first season, first episode, and I honestly was not sure what she was going to get out of it. And because I love Mr. Bean, I love Mr. Bean, Blackadder, a lot of Rowan Atkinson stuff, and
Hmm.
she was laughing like really hard. I was like, wow, this is impressive. I'm
Right.
kind of glad about that.
I'm like one of the few people that came in through Blackadder, so I do have Mr. Bean on disc. I could go watch it, but I've never fully clicked in with Mr. Bean because I just want to hear elaborate insults coming out of Ron Atkinson's mouth, and of course that does not happen with Mr. Bean. So
No.
but yeah, that's my, I guess that's my favorite bit of Atkinson.
Try watching Mr. Bean, but just turn the sound off and treat it like a silent film. I think you'll dig it.
Yeah, okay, maybe I'll play my own music over. I could try that. Yeah.
Yeah. Just sit with your guitar and watch Silent Mr. Bean.
Yeah, sure. I did recently see the clip of him of Rowan Atkinson doing sort of the Bean thing at the 2012 opening ceremony of the Olympics. So that was kind of
Nice.
fun. Yeah, if y'all have seen that.
I think I did back when it happened.
Yeah, it's the Chariots of Fire bit where he's got like,
Hmm.
I think he's doing
I
a
remember.
ball. So he's like getting bored and finding other things to do and getting into Bean stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
I remember.
that was good. I like that. So yeah, I'm just saying I haven't sat down and really watched them, but maybe I'll do it with my guitar sometime. That sounds like a proper suggestion. Something that I also thought was kind of almost modern meta humor was the end of the movie where he's watching the movie and then turning back to his girl to try and figure out what to do with her.
Yeah.
And the look on his face when babies appear on the screen.
Then they fade out. Yeah, that was great.
There's another one, College. Not one of his best movies, but the ending is great because it does the happily ever after thing with him and the girl in college he's been chasing. So it shows them getting married, and then it shows them with kids, and it just shows their gravestones, and then the movie's over. So that's a good joke in a movie that I mean, it's still, I mean, as that one has less
Yeah, that's a
stunts
fun
too.
little gag.
Yeah, I'm not recommending that one necessarily if you're chasing these with an Keaton for that, Our Hospitality or Seven Chances has a fantastic chase at the end. Perhaps you've seen the image of a guy running from like 300 brides before.
Maybe, but it's not immediately coming to mind.
It shows up. They use that clip in a lot of stuff, but that's the climax of the movie. It's always like usually like a chase or something, and in this case, it's him being chased by 300 women and wedding dresses.
That's story of my life, mate.
Yeah.
The going back to the story a little bit, the whole setup was kind of I was trying to pay attention just for like the cultural cues, and it was kind of interesting to see like for all the stuff when we talked about, and we did talk about it, like things happening around and kind of like to him. The money gag I thought was pretty funny in the beginning with the garbage. He's cleaning up the trash, and he finds a dollar bill, and he has only $2. He needs $3, right? He needs $3 or $4 or something to buy the gift, and he finds $1, and he's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing!" And then like this pretty lady shows up. She's like, "Oh, I lost the dollar bill," and then the poor, who is obviously a poor lady, also lost the dollar bill, but something happened there, and he's like, you felt the emotion from him, like, oh, now I have to help this poor woman, and it's like, it's still my money, but I felt really bad. I thought I don't even know what to call him at the end, who was looking for what eventually turned out to be his wallet.
Yeah, stuffed with bills.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, here's your dollar bill." He's like, "I don't want a dollar bill." Like, he pulls out the whole wallet. It's like a wad of cash. I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Of course, my favorite part of that bit is, "Have you seen my dollar?" and then describe it.
Yeah.
Which is a great way of using some, because they're like, "Oh, he couldn't transfer talkies because he couldn't do verbal humor." It's like, yes, he could. He's just in a silent movie. Did vaudeville for years. You have to be able to do. The story is he went to school for one day of his life when he was a child, and they were like, maybe when we're in a town that we should just put him in the local school, and he was just sitting there doing zingers all morning and they kicked him out. So he was certainly capable of verbal humor, but these movies do have a lot fewer intertitles than a lot of silent movies do, especially like dramatic ones. So the story really is trying to be put forth visually as much as possible, which is kind. Right. I think one of the reasons that joke stands out, because that's the one time they go with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But they did give some of the clues that I thought was actually kind of like, well, they gave clues around like who the character was, like the Sheik. I had to look up what Sheik meant in this context because
is he a pimp? I didn't look it up.
apparently Sheik is. I had to look it up, and I definitely wrote down the definition: a man held to be masterful and irresistibly charming to women. I thought he was a cad. I think maybe cad might be.
I think it's he thinks of himself as the Sheik rather than he necessarily just is one.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the few like named characters. So yeah, make it funny, right?
The dapper cad, the dapper Sheik. And then there was also another note in there. I looked in the background. The movie that was playing, or one of them, was Lounge Lizard's Lost Love in 5 parts.
Yes.
Yeah, you bake in the jokes where you can, right? Or maybe that was just a real movie. I don't know what things were like in 1924.
If it is, that's my next pick.
I guess that means it's a 5-reeler.
Lost Love.
Yeah. I guess that's I would mean a 5-reeler, because back in the day it'd be like, how many reels is the film? So Keaton graduated from 2-reelers to 6-reelers. So actually Sherlock Jr. would only be like a 3-reeler, I think, because it's shorter. But yeah. That's one thing. I love Sherlock Jr. because it's 45 minutes and you can speed it up and not really miss too much if you want to. It's just like in, out, does what it needs to do, gone,
One thing I'm interested. So Sherlock Jr. implies that Sherlock movies were big at the time, but I can't imagine were people into Sherlock movies during silent film?
Yeah, the books were still coming out that time.
Yeah, but like
Doyle writing it into the 20s.
What's a silent Sherlock Holmes film like?
A lot of intertitles.
Yeah, they're still talking.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they have the option, right? So they have to just go with the intertitles, I guess. I have not watched Silent Sherlock Holmes. I'm pretty sure it was a thing. I keep having YouTube trying to get me to watch 1915's 50-minute long Alice in Wonderland, which I keep almost clicking on, but I haven't yet.
That's weird, because after every single Buster Keaton movie, it wanted me to watch Cannonball Run 2. I don't know why. Specifically Cannonball Run 2, and both.
That one doesn't even have Jackie Chan. Oh, is he in 2?
I think it's in 2 and not 1. Yeah.
Oh,
maybe that's it. There's the connection. Yeah, he was in the car, right? The super fancy Japanese car.
The last time I saw Cannonball Run 2 was like 1984, so I was 5 years old. So I'm not gonna have too much of a ping on there. I do remember though.
I don't know if I've seen Cannonball Run 2.
That's one that just HBO would show like every other movie in the mid 80s. So when I was at my aunt's house, who had all the cable, you'd just Cannonball Run would be on a lot, or Cannonball Run 2. Excuse me, I never saw the first one.
No, the first one's great.
No, I understand the first one's the good one, and the second one's the ridiculous one. The Fast and the Furious of its day.
If you don't count the previously existing film called The Fast and the Furious.
I guess I just have to throw out for my own observations that the hat shopping scene in Steamboat Bill Jr. is pretty much what happens when I go shopping for hats. So all
clothes, I'd imagine.
Especially hats, though. Playa. If you've been to the Ario, that scene's played out at Playa a few times. It is spelled Playa. So,
that I noticed something with the he has. I don't know. I wish I knew the names of hats. I have tons of useless trivial facts. Names of hats never seem to stick.
Imagine if you wasted your wish with a genie on that.
Well, you'd know more about hats.
Can I know all the names of hats? But in that scene in Steamboat Bill where he's in the haberdasher right? There you go.
Well, there you go. That's Matt knowledge.
3 points for vocabulary.
He's going through all the hats, and one of the hats is like his typical hat.
Right, that's a meta joke.
Yeah, he grabs it really quickly and throws it away, like immediately, like no, I'm not going to grab this one, which I thought was really funny.
That one is called a pancake hat, and yes, I have thought about buying one. So, I mean, I can sit here. I can try it. I can do it right here. You can tell me which one works. That one's a little pimpier. Yeah, that one's from Playa.
Well, as you know, I'm wanting a cowboy hat. Oh, Matt wears that one all through the winter.
Yeah, this one's just on my head through the entire winter because Nagano winters are cold.
Well, yeah, I'm a big hat guy because there's only like 2 weeks in a year where I can get away with not wearing a hat because I'm either wearing one to not burn or wearing one to not be cold.
Radio. So you need a pancake hat. Yeah.
Well, I'm getting a sombrero, but not the one you're thinking of. When I go to Mexico in New Year.
Oh, not the pink one. Okay.
No, I'm gonna get a cowboy hat, but
yeah.
I would show you my gray felt alpine hat, but it's all the way upstairs, and I don't have it here, unfortunately.
Oh, I have another hat over here. I actually skipped one on this hat rack too. So I have a lot of hats. I don't wear hats in summer at all, though. I mean, I don't have your problem, Luke, of course, but yeah. I just I just can't wear them in summer because my wife's like, oh, you need to stay out of the sun, put on the hat, and like I can't deal with it. Like after 3 minutes, I'm gonna take it off anyway. So
I'm having to become like an old Japanese guy and put a towel between my head and the hat sometimes in summer.
Oh, okay. See, Playa. If you pay them $2 extra, they'll install a little strip in the front of the brim. So. Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine, one of my coworkers, and he's big into hats as well. He was just trying to find somebody to help replace a sweatband in his hat. We were talking about a milliner, which is the name for a hat maker and repairer.
I just think of the football player James Milner.
I think that is a new word for me.
Somewhere in his family history, someone was making straps for hats.
4 vocabulary points.
And I'm in the New York area, and we were surprised how few places you could actually find that repair hats anymore. It was actually kind of sad.
There's not like a Men in Black little style dive in Lower Manhattan where you can do that.
Possibly. I think you got to go digging around Delancey Street to see if you can.
I'm pretty sure any Milner that's still operating in 2023, if you go in there and ask for the right kind of hat, you're going to join the CIA.
Yeah, sure. I don't even know if I could say I'm into hats. I just have a lot of hats. So
it would have to be a really big hat for you to be in it.
Yeah. You could live in a hat.
I was going to make a joke, but yeah.
Lidsville, the Sid and Marty Krofft show. There you go. They all live in hats. I think they are hats on that show. I don't remember. Bouncing
like
back.
Something
go
you're
ahead.
Massively misremembering. So there's a show, like I think they're all hats or something.
I know. I remember the song Lidsville, dun, 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 dun. And it's usually in the Sid and Marty Krofft. It's like kind of like a 6 to 10-year-old kid, right? So it feels like, but in Lidsville, the kid's like 15. She's like, what the hell? This kid's stoned. And he looks stoned, and the show feels stoned. So
I'm gonna have to look up Lidsville.
Stoned face Jackson.
That's right. No, I will have the Lidsville intro. Don't watch the episode, or watch the episode if you want, but it did blast HR Puff and stuff out of the water for being a whacked out intro to something.
Wow, I just looked at this. Yeah, wow.
See, Luke, sometimes the mad shit I'm talking about is real.
Every now and then.
I
had this friend back in the day called Colin, and he would always tell us stuff that sounds too insane to be true. But then he was always kind of telling the truth. It's just he had a very weird way of like expressing things. Like when we were all into Heroes, he's like, oh yeah, in season 2, Ando does a Hadouken. We're like, what are you talking about? No, he doesn't. And then we get to the bit and like he gets the power to give other people powers. It's like, oh, he kind of does do a Hadouken.
There you go. It works.
Colin does it again.
He's what is the what's the Trek guy, the Trek species that speaks in metaphors?
Oh, yeah, Darmok and Jalad.
Yes, Darmok's all I needed there. They do have a name, but all I now I forgot the other thing I was thinking of. Okay, anyway, yeah, Darmok, that sort of stuff. That's Tony Todd, isn't it? Okay. Do you want to throw out any other observations you guys had on either of these movies?
I think I've got everything on my system.
I thought it was.
I did. Just looking at Buster Keaton himself, he really looks like Jim Parsons. So if they ever do a biography of him, I guess that's who would get to play him.
Huh.
The ghost of Buster Keaton? Oh, you're going the other way. Sorry. Okay. I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying Buster Keaton.
Oh, if they were gonna. No!
Which actually, okay, I don't know why.
I'd be more likely to watch that.
Yeah, it was like I got it wrong, and I feel dumb for getting it wrong. But I was like, but I do like my idea better.
Yeah.
Spenser, bouncing the ball your way.
Steamboat Bill, I thought was kind of interesting. The whole social dynamic stuff. Curious how that would have played around the 20s and 30s, where big rich man taking over the town is putting down the local and incumbent. The description of the movie, you said his son is a bit of a dandy. The description I saw was his effete son, which I thought was funny. So you saw dandy, I saw effete. So now we know what weakling people were called back in the day.
I mean, as Luke knows, I literally do the ukulele bit with babies. So
I gotta see you do that in silent films, dancing around, and then covering it with your own ukulele in the background.
Yeah, I got sad one with curb stomped.
The umbrella gag with the water.
For a second, I thought when you said I do the ukulele bit with babies, you meant you do that to babies.
No, dance around like a mad fool with trying to keep kids from not crying and entertaining them, right?
Yeah. I mean, they would stop crying if you curb stopped them.
Wow, that erased whatever we interrupted that with. What were we talking about? I think Spencer is midpoint, but I forgot what it was. Umbrella. It was something about umbrellas. Umbrella gag.
Oh, right. The umbrella gag where it's raining, the umbrella blows up. And I was waiting for it, and it actually came through, and it's still funny. So
I didn't think that
the water.
I didn't think that was funny because that happens to me regularly out here.
Oh, okay. So you walk into your house and just dump water on your wife when you come in.
Yeah, she's pissed about that.
I just got a new umbrella for my birthday from my sister.
I
could probably guess what kind of umbrella someone would buy me.
Kirby?
Well, no. I mean, yeah, but
pink,
no, it's
pink Kirby umbrella. That's a good guess.
No, it's one of those samurai sword ones. Here it is.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah,
wow.
that also makes sense.
Interesting.
Big pink Kirby umbrella. I can see you with that.
Oh, I would love a big pink Kirby umbrella. You know that.
It wasn't a bad guess, is what I'm saying.
No.
I got a good reference for Luke. When he punches the sheriff in the stomach, and I immediately thought of King Hippo from Punch Out.
Oh yeah.
Flat stomach.
Yeah. The prison break bit was that was another sort of, those were the kind of gags that would work in a talkie as well, right? Less over the top.
Yeah.
Like giving dumb excuses, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Before I do want to get to this, talking about the film and Filth, where it is, but how much of this would you say like rates as modern humor, like still works today? I mean, there's certainly a few gags that don't, but I feel like most of them are still pretty funny. That's part of the charm of these movies.
Like we were talking about, like this kind of silent comedy or the Looney Tunes stuff, it just doesn't age. Like when we put like Tom and Jerry or Wile E. Coyote on at work, and it's like people from all different countries, people from all different ages, everyone's chuckling, you know? Like, that kind of humor is pretty timeless.
Of course, in Japan, Tom and Jerry does throw them screaming "I'll kill you" and stuff in Japanese over it, which does make it slightly funnier in a way. Shinai! Right. You get a lot of that in Japanese Tom and Jerry, whereas they don't talk at all in English. But yeah, I guess there is something to silent comedy where maybe it can't be. I mean, again, it can't be as sophisticated as a Blackadder insult, right? Which maybe keeps it a little more universal.
Yeah, but again, but there is a sophistication to it and an art to it, right?
Right,
Like,
and I guess that's partly where the filmmaking chops come in.
yeah,
Like the film supports the jokes, like with early film technique, early special effects, and insane stunts. I have heard put out once or twice that Steamboat Bill Jr., like that's when his marriage was disintegrating and his wife was running away with his house and money and stuff. So people, I have heard people point out, I wonder if he was like, yeah, if the stunt doesn't go right, man.
I actually had a note. I was wondering how many of those pratfalls were him doing it on purpose, and how many of them were just like, well, I'm going to try this, and if it happens, it happens. Like particularly around the boat, like he's walking around at night and he steps off the boat, and I'm like, it felt too real to not be like to not be intentional on some level. It's actually kind of funny that you say that, and it's like, holy cow, you don't know what is going to happen when you fall literally 10 feet down, no matter how much you try and plan for that, right? So it was actually kind of interesting how much stuff was there that I was really wondering. It's like, okay, he's just gonna fall down and see what happens, and if he gets hurt, we'll do it again.
That's I guess that's part of the charm of the stone face, right? You can't tell.
Right.
And since he's been doing this since he was 5 years old, it's not going to break. I think you can find photos of Buster Keaton smiling, but he would go out of his way to, like he said, he was stressed out by attending Hollywood comedy premieres because people would see him laughing at funny movies. He didn't want people to see him laughing. He wanted to see the movie, but he didn't want people to see him laughing. So yeah. I mean, I'll fight people in the alley for not calling this a film, but is there anything filthy you want to throw on it?
just the Stonewall Jackson reference, I guess.
Yeah, again, that's one of the reasons that we did not do the general.
His father treating him like garbage was pretty bad. I mean, like, taking his ukulele and smashing it.
That was his vaudeville routine with his actual father, who again shows up in these movies. So, but yeah, that was his vaudeville shtick. That he's the little stinker that doesn't even change his expression, and dad is going. It's kind of like well, Freddie. Nobody gets Freddie Got Fingered references, but sort of Rip Torn in that movie. If anyone has seen it, that's sort of the same act. So people are still trying to do it, and to a certain extent.
It's funny though, because his father is, I mean, how tall was that actor? He must have been like 6'6" at least, right? Because he's
right.
huge.
Once he wasn't working with his real dad, like as his main partner, the his shtick was Keaton's a little guy, right? Like Jackie Chan. So his adversary, or not in this case, just his friction has to be with a very large man. And I think in many of the shorts in his first movie, Three Ages, it was always the same guy. So it was like a comedy duo, but that guy died after Three Ages. So he had to, start filling the role with other people. And again, he started off making movies with Fatty Arbuckle. So that's part of the shtick. Although the thing with Fatty Arbuckle is most of his jokes are not focused on him being fat. He just is big, and that turned out to be his stage nickname. So, but the jokes themselves are not like fat jokes. If you ever do watch some of those,
he's just big boned.
I am trying to bring up a bad review for Sherlock Jr. I kind of forgot to do that a little bit ahead of time, so I'm vamping. I'm vamping right now while I'm scrolling. I'm vamping and scrolling. Wow, I'm doing a really bad job.
I'm gonna go back a little bit to the talking about like the art form of these films. I think this kind of slapstick is to comedy what like action is to drama, where like people act like action is like simple dumb filmmaking, but doing action well is incredibly sophisticated and difficult, right? Like there are, for every one John Wick, there's 100 straight to DVD terrible action movies.
Oh, I've seen friends who've done, like, I used to do taekwondo, and I knew somebody who decided to do his own video martial arts film.
Nice.
Tough guy defending the neighborhood type of movie. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. Me and my friends used to try and film, like, elaborate lightsaber fights with umbrellas.
I've run
there
into
is
a
an art to it.
problem.
There's no bad reviews.
The lowest one for Sherlock Jr. is 3 out of 10. And the lowest one for Steamboat Bill, weirdly, is 5 out of 10. So even though I would also contend Sherlock Jr. is the better of the two, even though I like both. So I guess I don't know. Do I just go with the 3? You all want to hear a 3-star review?
Do
Sure.
it.
Okay. There's only like one 3-star review. Okay. There's 2.
Terrible movie. Sound was broken.
Yeah.
How's
One
it
of them
talk?
one of them likes Charlie Chaplin and doesn't like the other. One likes Charlie, one doesn't like Charlie. Which one do you want to hear? Probably the one that likes.
Yeah,
I don't
just
know.
let's give us the beef.
Totally nearly unwatchable. When I first saw this movie in the 250 list, I thought, well, 40 minutes is worth a try. Then the movie came to Prime Video and I watched it. Well, what should I say about it? I watched the best Charlie Chaplin movies without tone and color, and I really like The Gold Rush, for example. But in comparison to this, Sherlock Holmes Jr. is just nothing. I quickly turned away and did something else. Meanwhile, the movie run in the background. It's just not for me. I'm sure that some people like the movie because they love this old pieces of art, but especially younger people just like me will have some issues. I watched it because it's on the list, and that's that. 3 out of 5 found that helpful. So
How do you watch a silent how do you say you watched the silent movie and not actually looking at the screen?
well, I guess that means they didn't really watch it. Yeah, that occurred to me. I mean, I don't want
I
to
listen to the music.
Can't dance to it. Give it a 3 out of 10.
maybe it's because I'm an English teacher, but I would take the review like a lot more seriously if it didn't have like 5 weird grammatical errors. I don't know. Luke, how do you feel about that? You do the same thing.
Yeah, I do judge people on their grammar a lot.
Yeah.
I do it in an official form. I go back and re-edit my posts like all the time now in Slack. It's pretty bad.
Oh, same here. I mean, you're on the Discord. You'll almost always see my messages have a little edited thing by it, you know? So I hate that
Back
it
when I
shows
was
that.
in the dating game, like that, if I'm on like Tinder or whatever and the grammar's bad, that would end it for me.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Well, there was a girl I was actually seeing for a while back in the UK, and one of the main things that put me off her, she would never write ha ha ha. She would write aha, and I'm like, that's not a laugh. That's you saying uh-huh. And like I could never get over that. Really
What did
Oh,
put me
what
off
did you
her.
discover? You discovered something. Aha.
Yeah, right. That really put me off.
I don't know. My wife's normal response is "got you" with you as a you. Well, that's fine.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not against like using text talk. Just you have to still be accurate.
I don't know. I mean, when I text, if I'm on Messenger, and you know this, I will write full sentences without, notable mistakes. And I might even put the SP question mark if I really don't know if I'm spelling it right, So, but hey, you're talking to English teachers, so I guess that's what happens.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. Anyone wants to punt out? Did I drag you through I guess I did not drag you through like a horrible slog, which I was
No.
worried that both of you might be like, oh my god, dude, what's up with this?
It was like many of these on this podcast. I go into it like and then end up enjoying it. So, and I will say, if anyone's made it to this point in the podcast and not watched these, both of these films are on YouTube, and you can put them on 2 times speed and enjoy them.
Yeah,
So
Sherlock Jr. is definitely in my top 20 movies. I don't know if it's quite top 10. It might be if I sat down and thought about it, but you can put it at 1.5 or 2. It's fine. It looks like what you think a silent movie looks like when you do that, because you can watch it in natural speed. at regular speed now. But we all think of, so that it does that,
Yeah.
Steamboat Bill, I thought was dragged a little bit for me. I understand why they did the jail scene, because he had to go save his father from the water. Like, I don't know if they could have figured out any other way to do that, but I almost feel like the whole jailhouse scene was a little bit too much. Overall, though, I like both movies. This is more stuff that I definitely want to go and see and watch. It's actually kind of funny, if you ever watch Star Trek Discovery. There's one of the episodes where the computer on the Discovery becomes self-aware and recommends to the captain that they should watch a Buster Keaton movie. And they're in like one of the halls or one of the shuttle bays or something, and they're all the entire crew is watching it, and they're doubled over in laughter. I don't think I would ever get to that point, but it was definitely enjoyable.
With a group of people.
I think, with a group of people who are into it, you can.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've been watching these old Wile E. Coyotes, and like once the kids start getting into it, I start laughing as well. And sometimes you are just really belly laughing at some of this stuff.
It is infectious. Yeah, I mean, laughter is infectious.
And also, like, if you're a stuffy Starfleet captain who hasn't watched a comedy movie in your life, and then you're all stuck in a shuttle bay watching it, I can see it happening.
Yeah, it's a good release valve too. It's true.
You'll probably just have to tell me to shut up, because I'll go on forever about Keaton. But one, just to respond, you were mentioning, they had to structure the story that way, blah blah. I should mention, this is one of the things that kind of killed his career as well. It wasn't the fact that he had to talk now, but these movies, as were the case with many silent movies, were just scenarios. So if you're on the boat and suddenly, like you said, hey, it would be kind of cool if he just walks off it, that's fine. That doesn't screw up the production, because at most they've written down a few paragraphs of what they think should happen and can really change it. So when he went to MGM expects a finished script, and he's like, I can't make my movies that way. We make half of the stuff up on the spot,
Yeah.
So that's another interesting bit of silent filmmaking. One of the more fascinating things is that a lot of it is more off the cuff. Like, even big productions would just wing it a lot of the time. So but yeah, I guess I should shut myself up about this point. Spenser, you're saying you're doing a few other podcast spots, and you're in 2 weeks. I think you're on the Time Enough podcast, so people will hear you there. But
I am. I should build that one. I'm on Time Enough Pod. It's that one was an interesting one. I was actually talking to my brother about that, who's big into Twilight Zone and a lot of the other stuff back in the day, and he said he used to watch that after what was the other big
Outer Limits?
Yeah, he used to watch it after Outer Limits. I was like, really? One Step Beyond was actually on TV? He's like, yeah, 1:30 in the morning. So that was pretty funny to talk about that. And then I've done a few of the Star Trek episodes with folks called the B Team. People, one of the guys, John Macy, that I finally connected with at the big Las Vegas convention, and he had a bunch of friends that I think they're up to their 500th episode now, and they talk about a whole bunch of other stuff, movies and current movies out there, and then I think they're covering Farscape because they want to cover Farscape, but mostly I've been doing a lot of the Star Trek episodes with them. So
alrighty, Luke, I'll bounce the ball your way. You say what you want to say.
We need music for Luke's silent gag.
Well, you can put intertitles on, Luke. You look at your phone. You make the intertitles. It says something about podcast on Patreon, and it says that, and now he's using obscenities.
Yeah, most of the time I was.
And something about we're doing this in support of the SAG-WGA stuff, and do support them. I'm sticking a link in the show notes for the time being, if that was the most official looking one I could find. So it's there. And inner title just said bye and come on, Luke, I'm sitting you there. Oh, he just gave the finger. Okay, that should have been an inner title for the finger. That's something silent movies missed. Okay, I assume you're going to the gym, which is why I was like, I need to hit the brakes.
Yeah.
I had like 3 more points I could make, but yeah, it's a dangerous topic for me. Oh, one question, since you guys do listen time enough, I did I tell the university story of me trying to do Buster Keaton with my girlfriend? Oh, that sounds dirty, but yeah, we went to the sports center and I was just like being silent while we were playing squash and doing insane pratfalls and not
You
telling her that I
definitely
was doing
told me that story, but
I know I told you, but I didn't know if I told it on air. But anyway, it didn't get told then. So
did you bust her, Keaton?
a different time,
Oh boy.
not in the squash court. Oh, this is fun. So I'll hang it up after this. But just one thing that I heard on a different podcast a few days ago. Luke, can you verify that nothing is very old British slang for lady parts?
Nothing?
Yeah, like what are you up to? Huh, nothing.
I've
I'm
never heard
talking.
that.
Okay, I was told this dates from like the 17th, 18th century, so I'm sure it's not modern slang. But apparently, that really changes the title of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing.
Oh.
And if that's not true, I'm really sad now.
It very much might be.
Yeah, so that just makes it like the dirtiest title ever, if that's correct.
I mean, that is very Shakespeare behavior. So
yeah, I know. That's why I don't want to not believe it's true. It looks like Spencer's actually checking.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
taking on,
seeing.
yeah, you're doing the man in the chair duties today. He's got to go to the gym.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, we start work in 2 hours.
Yeah, I got my daughter coming home, and then my other daughter's running around upstairs.
Okay, well, thanks for bopping in.
Yeah,
I don't
man.
know. If we're still doing weird stuff in November, I actually do have the gorilla on my mind just for shits and giggles. So
I'll have to take a look at it. I will.
at first I was turned off because it was like, oh, this comedy team's kind of like a low rent Three Stooges, and I was like, I don't want to see that. And then a week later, it's like, maybe I do want to see that. So yeah.
Yeah, it might be the Three Stooges with Curly Joe level
Right.
of.
Okay. Anyway, we'll catch you for too long. This one actually goes out tomorrow. So with Mark's problems and Luke's internet problems, we actually are. I was about to put out like an old Sci-Fi Sanctuary that had Mark on it to fill the weekend, but this is now tomorrow's episode. So
All right, I'll share that one out.
Later.
My friends don't know that I'm doing podcasts, so
Oh,
this
well, they'll learn about it.